Hey everybody, I'm Suzanne Barrett Justis, and in this video we're going to paint a baby chicken, a little chick, in watercolor paint. Now, normally, that's not my medium that I work with, but it's fun to go ahead and try different mediums every now and then, just to loosen up, keep your brain kind of popping, and try new things. And I hope that you guys try new mediums too. And so, yeah, let's go ahead and do this little tiny baby chicken in watercolor. And if you are my subscribers, thank you so much. And if you're not, please consider subscribing and know that this particular piece will also be on Patreon. So sit back and let's paint a baby chicken. Okay, so here's our little chick. I just drew a little tiny chick on with some graphite, and I have my paints over here. I've got two sets. One's a very inexpensive, cheap set. It's got lots of colors. I really like this one for traveling. And this is also a little travel kit, but it's a little bit pricier, but very good. This is the Windsor Newton, a little Windsor Newton set. And then I have this little set, which I'll leave the links to this particular one. I've shown you this one before. It's been in other videos. And here is our little chick. Now, what we're gonna do with watercolors, since this is not really my main medium, we're going to concentrate on keeping the soft, fuzzy white edges. And I'm not going to be basing this on a lot of detail like I normally do with my oil pieces. It's going to be about knowing where to use the dark colors and the values of the little chick and the softness of the little chick and all that good stuff. So here, we're going to take another look at the little chick, and we're going to go ahead and jump into this little painting. Let's go. I'm going to just lightly wet the area around my little bird, just a little bit, so I can start to block in around them. Now, I'm going with a very dark background. And again, I'm wanting to just concentrate on the softness of this little bird. And it's really fun to get off of your normal mediums and try something new. So I'm just going to go in with a kind of a darker, almost like a burnt umber. Actually, it's more like a raw umber. And I'm going to go right up to that edge. And I'm going to let it bleed, because this is kind of the advantage of working with this type of medium. And even if I just do this little bit here, where I just kind of pre-wet this area. And I'll be able to. Now I will say, the brush that I'm using is just one of those little pens, but I am using it as a traditional brush. It's not a very good brush, but you know what? It's fine for what I'm using for this demonstration. I'm going to warm up the ground a little bit underneath the little bird's feet. And I do want it to kind of dry out. So I'm just kind of putting this in around. And for me, I'm just trying to keep it very soft. So this is really nothing yet. So I want to take advantage of all the dark values and negative space. So I've got this little neat negative space in here. Interesting, this is very black. I'm going to put a little bit more of this in here. And I want to keep it very soft. And I'm working on one side at a time because, paint dry, the water will dry. And I just want to play in with this, guys. I'm just playing. And sometimes I think it's important that we remember that it's okay to just play. Experiment with your mediums. Watercolor was my first medium, believe it or not. But I did not paint as a traditional watercolorist because it's not what I was used to seeing. As a kid, my mother, who is also a professional artist, did a lot of equestrian art, and she worked in acrylic and in oil, so that's what I knew. Okay, so I left that edge wet on the very, very edge, and I want it to bleed a little bit. Now I'm going back in with some clean water, just going on the inside part. Let's see if I can control this. And if you're used to working with watercolor, you know sometimes the control issue, well, that's a problem. I'm going to take a very light yellow and just kind of go along the outside here. But I want to keep my brush clean, so I'm just going to go along the edges here. And hopefully it'll bleed out to the edge. So I'm kind of tipping my my substrate. In this case, it's just a little Strathmore watercolor paper. I'm tipping it just a little bit so it can go in that direction. And you see how it's kind of very soft and fuzzy out here. I like that. That's kind of what I'm going for. And you can see I just want to keep that very soft and light. And I think that's kind of neat. Now I'm going to go in here a little bit closer with this little foot. And I'm using the very tip of that little brush just to go in there. Again, even here, in this dark area, I kind of like what's going on here. That just kind of makes it fun. It's good to get outside of your medium comfort zone. Every now and then, just gotta do it. All right, I'm gonna do it on this side now too. Same process. Going to wet around this area of the chick's face. Kind of get this in here. I'm going to turn this around a little bit so I can just move and work around. And I picked a chick, a little baby chick, because come on, they're too cute. They're just too darn cute. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and blend my dark values here, but I'm going to keep tipping and turning this. And I like to concentrate on the little dark values or the negative space, and getting it here. Now I've got my little paper towel. If I start to feel like I'm getting into an area that I don't want it to get into, I can always because I really want his bill and stuff to remain really clean. So I'm going to go in a little bit darker. So this negative space around his beak. And this area about his face. And I'm trying to really see my pencil marks, my graphite marks here. And I want the little bird to stand out. And I feel pretty good about it so far. And I can see it right there. It's coming. I'll just go ahead and wet the rest of this area back here. And the crunching sound is the sound of Singer. His bone of choice today happens to be a goat horn. So he is munching away on a goat horn. And I'm here to tell you folks, if you've never given your dog a goat horn, I'm pretty sure that this is a billy goat horn because it stinks. I mean, it smells like a stock. I mean, it smells like a billy goat. And if you've ever been around a billy goat, you can appreciate what I'm trying to say here. It smells really strong. All right, so we've got this little chick here, and he's an adorable little chick. Okay. And I'm just moving this color around, and sometimes it's really fun to let it, I don't know, dance around. You could use something like salt or some other medium. You know, that's I will consider salt a medium in watercolors. And I'm just going to add a little bit more black in the background, and I want my little chick to stand out. I'm just playing. And really, folks, remember, playing is key. You need to play more with your mediums. Experiment a little bit. And every now and then, just a piece like this is a great exercise in learning how to loosen up a little bit. I've been painting so tight, and actually I have one piece that will be on YouTube coming soon, and probably also for my Patreon channel. I'm working on of Purple Martins, and so that'll be coming to you really soon. And I'm also working on a horse piece, which probably will not be on either Patreon or YouTube, simply because I keep throwing horse pieces at you guys. I know you get sick of it after a while. So I'm trying to, that's why today's piece, I'm trying to keep it new and fresh and different. And that's why we're doing a little chick. Okay, so I've got this kind of varied background here, but I have it very controlled in some areas. And you know, you can drop some water, little drops of water can make some interesting bleeds, if you will. And I like to do that, especially if you're painting in watercolor. See, and I love how it just kind of bleeds out and does some weird stuff. But it's already drying on this side, I can tell. And let's just go ahead and throw some more paint down here, up here, put a little bit more black in there. And I can go back in where I have this little soft bleed in here. Okay, let's just leave that. All right, I don't want to get too wet. And I'm going to clean my brush off really well, because I'm going to do the same thing I did earlier with a little bit of the yellow. Now, my chick in the picture is not really bright yellow, but I'm going to make mine a little bit brighter yellow because it makes it fun for me. And there's going to be some colors in here that's not really that yellow. So I'm kind of wetting this edge down a little bit here to create a little bleed. And so I'm gonna tip it a little bit like this. And I'm just trying to create that soft, I'm trying to soften it up just a tad. So I'm trying to hit that just on those edges, just soften the edges, sort of like what we did here. And it may or may not work here. We'll see. Yeah, I think that's part of the interesting aspect of watercolors, is that it's not always as predictable. And maybe that's probably why I tend to really gravitate more towards oils, because I can control those. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start putting in some of the values that this little bird has. And I'll usually start with the lighter values and end with my darker values. A little reverse than what I usually do. I'm going to start at the feet. I'm going to go in with this kind of, it's kind of a cadmium medium yellow, and just kind of put in the areas of the feet here. And now that was pretty, but then it turns, because of the shadows, more burnt sienna. And it kind of loops down like that. Same here. And this little foot over here, this little toe behind here, is a lot darker. And we'll see a little bit of that in here. And there's this like almost like a little webbing right here. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. And I'm letting it just blend a little bit with my background. I'm going to take just a little bit of black and suggest underneath the feet where the little bird is standing. Going to bring this in a little bit. I'm kind of tightening it up a little bit more. And singer saw somebody walk by the studio. How dare they walk by and not come in and buy art. Okay, and I'm going to cut in a little bit, refine these little feet. I got them a little thick. But I like this little dark value in between here. The little feet are cute. Okay, so it did bleed a little bit. I'm going back up through here. Firming that up a little bit more, adding more background. So you can see I'll go back and forth between the two quite a bit. And I know I have to go in a lot darker underneath these feet. So I'm going to go and I'm going to intensify my value here. That's the thing about watercolor. You can always go deeper or darker with your values, but you can't go lighter with them if you kind of have to use your white of the paper as your whitest value. And that's what I'm trying to remember. Because remember, I'm not used to working with. And it's great to challenge your brain as an artist, to use different mediums, try something new. Even go back to something they used to do. In my case, I used to be a watercolor. So this is, I have to, my brain's popping all over the place. Let's just put it that way. I'm really thinking about what I'm doing here, folks. And so I'm just kind of getting those little feet in, those little tiny bird feet. And really it needs to be much darker still. So I'm going to put lots of color down. And I may come back because it'll be a little bit drier. And actually put a little bit of black in here. I probably have this little foot, this little toe a little bit long. We're going to cut that a little bit off. A little bit darker in here. Let it blend with that burnt sienna color. And that should be a little bit low. There we go. That's a little bit better. This one is a little bit shorter too. Okay, let's leave that. Okay, let's go back into the bird here. Okay. Now I'm going to go in with the next. I'm looking because I know that this area of the chick I want to leave very white. So I've got to leave the white of my paper. It's got to be very, very careful how I do this. I'm going to take a little bit of that yellow that I started with, which is basically a lemon yellow. And I'm going to put a little bit of yellow ochre in it. Let's see what happens to this color. Let's see. So I'm going to kind of, in this area, its face. Now it still looks the same. I'm going to put it, there we go. I'm browning it down just a tiny bit. I'm just kind of getting some of the areas. Like there's an area right in here that's actually quite dark, and I'm going to look for my cool dark values to create the shadows that this little bird needs. But you know, I want to go dark, but I want to make sure I go the right kind of dark. Does that make sense? Because it's not necessarily a cool dark. It may just be a darker value, but still has a little bit of warmth in that shadow. Not all shadows are very cool. Well, that sounds like everything I've never said. I mean, I'm contradicting almost everything I say, but being on that there may be some reflective light. So I'm going to come in here and hit some of this area in here. And suggesting that there's a little bit of, see, I'm leaving that little bit of fuzz, that little bit of edge. And sometimes I'll just keep, just like I do with my oil paints, I wipe. And there's a dark value that's actually very cool right here, and I'll cool it down here in a minute. But I'm trying to work around this little fuzzy edge. Leaving it like that. And under here, where his little, so I need to bleed it out a little bit, so I'm just adding water. So I want to keep it soft. Remember, it's just a little tiny chick. And under here, there's a little bit of color. Now, I say I'm always trying to leave the white of the paper in, right, as my white. I can cheat because I do have gouache. I do have a white paint, but I'm going to try my best not to. Okay, Singer. I know, sweetie. So I'm going to make a bit of a shade. Adding a little bit of the ivory black to some of this area, and here creating this. And I'm going to actually, since this is dry, I'm kind of doing a little bit of dry brush technique. And it seems to be effective. So I'm going in with a little bit more just straight black, but I know that the paint's already wet here. So it seems to be effective. It seems to be working. This is good. Okay, there's an area right over here where the little bird's got his neck turned. Now I do want to keep that little edge that's bare without paint. But knowing that closer to the bird's neck and face, it would be darker. So I'm trying to control my paint to keep it in. Okay, big shot. Singer, it's okay, honey. It's nice to know I'm so protected by my big old dog. Okay. Now I'm going to clean off my brush really well and start to, I'm just going to suggest that there's a little bit of something going on here. Now you can't really see that I'm doing anything other than perhaps loosening up some of the paint that I've already got down and making some texture. Now I'm going to make a little bit of a gray with a tiny, tiny bit of blue in this. Okay, so my brush is mainly just dirty, but it's just a little tiny bit of blue, and it's not really coming out blue. Let's try that again. Taking a little bit of blue paint, yes, blue paint. Okay, let's try again. Yeah, there we go. Very lightly putting this down. Light, hardly touching it. And he's got this little area here on his beak, on his neck. Just kind of going around his head area. I'm going to put a little bit more water too, because I think it's still too much even. Just going to get a little bit more of the yellow in there. And I can see where I'm gonna have to cut some in here a little bit. But we're not gonna worry about it right now. I'm gonna go in here and get some of this off. Let me change some of this a little bit. So now you can see it's all, my paper is drying. And going back in here. Remember, I wanted the chick to be it's gonna have the least amount of paint. The background has a whole lot more paint than the chick will. Let's see if I can get this a little bit deeper. And where his head comes down and his little wing, he's got a little wing in here. Trying to leave some of that untouched. So now we try to soften it up. So I just take water and just kind of move around this here. That's his little wing. I'm staying away from his bill because I know I want to put a lot of the detail, and that's the thing too about watercolor, folks. Try to keep your detail in the areas that you think is the most important. I'm working on his feet and his face. And I'm trying to create the form, so since there's a little bit of shadow right underneath here, maybe his little breast is full or whatever it is, I'm just increasing it a little bit, sort of like what I did on this side, but it disappears. So I'm trying to wipe off some of the paint here or blend it so it's not quite as distinct, and that's working. I am gouaching it out a little bit. I am using a little bit of white paint. It's the gouache. Because on this side it is a little bit more. I'm going to take a lot of the paint off just a little bit, just like the edges here. That works. And so I'm using just a little bit more of a dry brush technique. But it's not letting me, it's not grabbing. So hang on. And I'm going to bring this out a little bit here. And I've been using the same brush, guys. I've not ever switched the brush. It's still the very same one I started with, which came with this set. And it's pretty nifty, especially if you're traveling and you don't want to bring a bottle of water with you. You can actually store the water right inside the pen itself. You can see there's water inside the pen. You know, I use this, how do I say this without sounding, I'm not going to say this is a serious set of watercolor paints, but it sure is nifty to have if you're traveling and you just need a little set to get it down. Okay, so I'm going to go up here and I'm blending this out a little tiny bit. Since I got it out, we're doing good, enjoying this color quite a bit. Now I'm going to jump into this little face. Now this little bird still has his egg tooth, and he's not been out of the shell for very long. Now if I really wanted to get nuts here, I could drop water on the bird and watch it spread and see what happens and see if I like the effect. I might not like the effect. But I'm not going to. I'm just going to try to go with what I know here. Putting a little bit of fuzz on the top of the head, just a little bit. And you have to be careful because you will pick up some of that black paint and it will dirty your paint up, so you don't want that to happen. So you have to keep wiping your brush off, clean it off, etc. Okay, the beak. The beak is a funny color. It's kind of an orangey, I am going to say it's a very yellowy orangey color, very similar to the feet actually. And I'm going to blend my color. I'm going to try to show you better. So I'm going to bring this over to you. So here we are. I'm taking this yellow here. I'm going to put a little bit of cad red. It's kind of more peachy. And let's put a little bit in there and see if that will actually. And so I'm blending on this other little tray, and I'm going to put his little bill in. His bottom bill is darker. So I probably should start with the lightest color first. So I'm going to take a combination of the lemon yellow and water it down profusely. And it goes down. I'm probably going to leave that alone because you know what? I need to let it dry so I can do the details. I may just, let me get underneath his build just a tiny bit. And I'm going to go in with just like a kind of a burnt sienna color, very, very low light load here. There we go, that's effective. Okay, I'm gonna leave it. Okay, little eye. I'm gonna go with a little bit of black and just leave the shine. So let's see if I can do this. I'm gonna go above that. So I'm dealing with wet paint, you have to be very careful. Got a little bit of wet paint still. Turning this just so I can now I'm going back in with my little bit of gray that I made. There's some little detail underneath the eye, which is like a little tiny lid. Actually, the eyelid is a little bit different shape. I have it a little too round. His eye is more oblong, so we're bringing this out a little bit more. That looks a little bit better. Should not touch the... Now he does have like a little bit of a, almost like a, for lack of a better word, it almost looks like he has mascara on. Maybe it's a little hen. Just a little bit. And we're gonna get in here. A little bit big still. So I keep moving the paint, and you can see I keep wiping my brush off. Now my dog is standing up. This is kind of cute. I have to show you. Hang on. Singer is anticipating a delivery, obviously. So he is standing and he saw the UPS truck drive by. Funny thing is that dog knows when the UPS drives by, or if it's FedEx or it's the mailman, he knows it's a delivery. Because it bled and I didn't want it to do that, so we're gonna clean that up a little bit. Let's see if I can. So underneath this part of his eye, I'm gonna try to bring it up a little bit. This eye got a little bit big. It's not really that big, it's just it doesn't... You know what, it's because I put this light, I thought by keeping that little light spot in it, it would make more sense, but really there isn't a light spot in the picture. I just kind of made that up because I thought it would look good, but I'm not thinking that's going to work. All right, let's just lighten him up a little bit. He's a fun little guy. This is fun to get off on something like this. Now, I will ask you guys if this is a If you have a medium that you're used to, I'll challenge you now. Here's the challenge. If you're used to being a acrylic painter, I want you to try oils. Or if you're a watercolor artist, let's try acrylic. Move around. Has anybody here that is one of my, who's watching today, maybe you're a sculptor? I would challenge you to try another medium. Just try it. Now I'm just kind of playing a little bit, moving this around a little bit more. Seeing where else I need to go. I'm also kind of watching my shapes, if you will. Seeing if I can make more form. Now, this little part of his, I will return to the beak area, but now I've seen some artists that do watercolors that actually mix acrylics into their work. I don't. But I'm also don't consider myself necessarily a, definitely not a purist, because I have used a little gouache into this particular piece. But I'm curious, do you ever use other mediums when you're painting? You know, I like learning about new stuff. I think that's kind of the best thing about, about being an artist, is just experimenting and trying new things. I want to hear from you guys. So leave it in the comment section. If you're a watercolorist, do you use mascoid a lot? Do you use, do you ever mix acrylics and gouache into your paints when you're working? Or perhaps you're a purist and you're like, oh, no, we don't do that. I like to hear from you guys. All right, I'm not going to paint too much longer on this little guy. I'm going to add a little bit. There is a little bit of this peachy. He's got, this particular bird is not the bright yellow kind. I don't know what particular species of or breed of chicken he is. I'm just kind of playing around here. All right, those little feet, they should be a little bit drier. So there's going to be a little detail in the feet. Delineating his toes. I kind of skinnied up that one toe a little too much. I'm going to put some more dark underneath here. Just always want to make it look like that. I'm trying to make this look a little bit more, not so corrected. And I want to intensify the contrast here. A little bit more. I hope you liked today's demo. This is just a little something different. Figured I'd give you something easy and fast to watch. Since I'm usually dragging out my videos over a long period of time, and I'm sure I exhaust you with them. This is just, you know, so let me know if you like to see smaller videos like this, little shorts. I would consider this a short. This is just a tiny little baby demo. And I'm going to put a little bit more detail into his nose, and we will be done, folks. His little nostril. And I told you he had a little egg tooth. Let me see if I can actually make this happen. I don't know if this is going to work. It's usually very blunt on the very tip of his bill, and I'm just taking a little bit of the gouache. I see there's actually two fold. I want to try to work a little bit more on this little bill. He has a little area here that kind of comes out. And he actually has another little area right here. You know, I'll keep fussing with this until I mess it up, just saying. Has that ever happened to you? And the thing is, I think that watercolors are a whole lot less forgiving than acrylic or oils. Because at least with oils and acrylic, if you do mess it up, you can paint over it, you can go back. You really can't do that with watercolor, you just can't. So, I'll keep messing with this until I ruin it. I'm feeling a little bit better about that. I think his little forehead needs to be a little higher. So I'm bringing this up a little bit. And I'm feeling, yeah, that's probably a little bit better. Folks. So I think I created that little bit of a soft edge with that wet paint. Okay, this is actually the highest point. So actually, compared to my original drawing, I did move him out quite a bit. That's okay. That looks better. I'm sorry. I was a little out of... And here, it goes down. So in this particular painting, I concentrated more on leaving, you know, trying to have the highlights of the bird, light, you know, keeping things light where they needed to be light, creating the soft edge to keep that bird puffy like a little tiny baby chick is. And but I used a combination of wet on wet and dry brush and even gouache in this piece. And you saw, I mean, you're looking at it real time. It did not take me very long to do. And maybe, you know, when you guys try something like this, just let yourself play a little bit. Just play. Play, 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 play. And guys, I think that's it. I think that's our little tiny baby tech. I think that's it. And if you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to leave it in the comments section and I'll get to you. And know that this piece will also be on Patreon. And check me out there as well. Okay, well, thanks for being here, and we'll go ahead and catch you on the other side. I just love the little white spot, because I think the white spot in the eye makes it seem a little bit brighter. But if you look at the edges, you know, I try to keep the edges pretty soft. But I did use a little dry brush on that, and the little detail in his feet and the light. I think that's what makes it fun. This is really a simple exercise, but it's a really important one in helping you loosen up. I tend to be a pretty tight painter, so this is challenging for me to be loose, but I still wanted to create the little softness in the little chick's face, and I feel confident that I did. And it is fun to work with different mediums. So if you enjoyed today's video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you have any questions whatsoever, leave them in the comments section. And we're done. So this is the finished piece. And if you look really closely, you'll see that I was able to keep it very soft on the sides. There's very little detail on this piece. And I hope I'm not blurring it out or getting too close, but I hope you can see that you can, you know, I think it took me probably about 35 minutes to do this. And keep in mind, I'm also explaining and talking while I'm doing it, so it may have taken a little bit less time. But I really like how this little duty came out. Yes, and here in the country, we do call these duties, by the way. And yeah, this little baby chick came out. I'm pleased with it, and I hope you enjoyed watching today's video. And if you have any questions about anything I covered in this video, please leave it in the comments section and I'll get to you. And if you are my subscribers, of course, thank you so much. And if you're not my subscribers, you know what to do. Go ahead, smash that button, be a subscriber, and you'll know when the next video comes out. And who knows, you know, today went off the beaten path and used watercolor as my medium. And I really think that that's a great exercise for any artist to switch it up every now and then, just to keep things fresh. So from Kingsport, Tennessee, I want to thank you for being here, and I'll see ya. Bye.